You're listening to the Crystal Clarity Podcast. Welcome back to the Crystal Clarity Podcast. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I am so excited to be back for today's episode, number 7, which is about something really simple. It's about fluorite, and it's about fluorite in healing work. And fluorite is a stone that is really accessible. And it's a stone that comes in every color. And it's a stone that for everybody that's ever collected crystals or liked going into a shop and getting crystals, you probably have a piece of fluorite because at some point, a fluorite has drawn you in and vibrationally attracted you. And it has bonded to you. It drew you in like it likes to do, like a little vacuum, and got you connected to it, and you took it home. So this is a simple episode about the power of fluorite in healing because it knows who it is, and it's somewhat of a one-trick pony because it's really clear in who it is and what it's going to do. So let's make sure in this episode today you get that down. I'll see you inside. Welcome to the Crystal Clarity Podcast. It's time to settle in once again with the stones. Together, we'll illuminate stones and crystals in healing and spiritual alchemy, and then go beyond, exploring land healing, earth grids, sacred sites, and all rocks in the wild. My name is Sarah Thomas. I'm a healer, educator, and an expert in the field of ancient stone medicine and future crystal technologies that heal and awaken. All right, it's time to relax into some crystal clarity. So I have not been able to do a podcast in about a month or so. So it's incredibly wonderful to be back. I'm so happy to be back for episode 7. And sometimes I just get a little bit busy with the students and having this wonderful school and taking care of everybody in their learning through small courses, free courses, one-night courses, live courses, online courses, and certification courses. And if you would like to join a nice crystal community where we are ushering in a new age of crystal consciousness, the last wave of crystal consciousness came in about 50 years ago. In around 1973, and it's now 2023, and we're ushering in the next new wave and letting it land here really is what's happening as the stones allow these new waves of consciousness to land. We're kind of partnering with them in that. And if you would love to choose a class for you or the right thing for you, you can always join me at upperclarity.com. Fluorite is a stone for healers. It's a stone for people that just want to do more with their stones than keep them on a shelf. It has this very direct action of simply just clearing. It has an evaporative action. It has an energetic where it can pull things out of the land. It can pull things out of the earth. It can pull things out of a home space, and it can pull things out of a person or an acupuncture point or an energy center. I do see it as like an evaporation. There's a way it's a very ethereal, almost like if you painted something with water and then you just watched it disappear. Fluorite has this way of taking that painting that then just dries and evaporates. It's like seeing something in the body that just needs to evaporate, that just needs to clear. And those things that need to clear from a deep level, this is the place where fluorite really shines. Because first of all, first and foremost, fluorite is a stone. And stones work at a really deep level of who we are. If we look at it physically, it's like they work at the bone and the bone marrow, and the kidneys are very deep, and the reproductive organs are deep, and the uterus and the brain and the ovaries and the testes and the endocrine system. These things are all really deep inside us. It's kind of the places where you don't really want anything to go wrong because they're so core, they're so deep. And we call these things like our essence. They're fundamental. And on a spiritual level, we also can pull things out of the deep with stones. And this is just a place that they absolutely shine among all things. I mean, if you look at trees, nuts, seeds, grains, grasses, animal parts, all these things, they're above surface, and stones are deep in the surface of the earth. Some of them are forming miles and miles and miles below the surface of the earth at the igneous layer of the earth. And so they resonate with what is deep inside of us. And you know what? There is this thing about depth, that depth and permanence are correlative. So the deeper something is inside of us, usually the longer it takes to heal, the longer it takes to come. If something gets stuck at such a great depth, it's going to take more time to come out or heal. Stones are related to depth and permanence, and they're also related to time in a really interesting way that hopefully we'll get to very soon. But fluorite is able to evaporate things from the depths. Physically, like we talked about, spiritually and emotionally, but also soul level. And, we are multidimensional. Our soul is billions and billions of years old. We're so much more vast and so much older than we realize. We've been involved and are involved in so much more things than we realize. This reality that we're in right now is like the tip of a giant iceberg of who we are and what we know and the depths of our beings, what we have stored like record keeper in our deep subconscious and unconscious, what we have deep in our soul records. And stones resonate to pulling things out of those, or resonating with those soul records, and fluorite can pull things out. So there's a term that we use in medicine called latency. And don't let that word scare you because it just sounds so clinical, but latency is just when we have something that we can't deal with in the moment, whether it's something physical like mold or a parasite, or we got, a virus, our body is so wise it will push it into latency and wall it off. So it almost puts it in like a closet so that we can survive and deal and move on. The thing about when we store things in latency and push them down, they are going to have to come out at some point. So fluorite is a stone that we use to pull things out of latency. It's a stone that we use to pull things out of the deep closets where we have stored things that were too much for us to deal with in the moment. And you may be thinking, oh, the definition of trauma is the things that they were too much for us to deal with in the moment. So we pushed them down and stored them away. And that is a connected line of thinking. And trauma is something that will settle down in the deepest layers of who we are and then be connected to taking time to heal, or we feel like we have it forever, or will this ever change, or we feel like we get stuck there sometimes. So fluoride is a stone that goes in and it uses this power that has, it's like a vacuum. It has this, fluorine has the greatest electronegativity of any element on the periodic table. Fluorine has the greatest electronegativity of any element on the periodic table. That means it's hungry to bind with other things. It's hungry to vacuum things up, to vibrationally attract things, to draw things to it, to get those electron shells filled. And so it'll bond with anything. It's like a great vacuum cleaner. It's like if anything is there that it can latch onto and pull out, fluorite's going to do it. And it has this power to dematerialize things like that, to pull things out of the depth of form and release them back into formlessness. When people are going through a crisis, or there's something really acute happening, or there's not a lot of stability in their life at the moment, it's not a great time to say, well, I'm going to go in and pull things out of latency. It's actually a good time to leave things in latency so you can deal with what's happening in the moment. But then there are times that it's good to say, let's go down and free you. Fluorite's very about freedom. Let's go down and free you of these things that you've been storing and holding on to and that your body has walled off. Sometimes when we leave things in latency for too long, they can cause disease processes from that closet that we left them in. So this stone is like a spelunker who goes down deep into the caverns of the body to draw up, evaporate, and dematerialize what we have stored in latency. I recall a story of a really brilliant couple in my town that everybody loved this couple. They were a young couple. Everybody was like, they are the most honest couple. They worked for social, ethical justice. They always had huge smiles on their faces. They were always on social media because they were working for their little service-based business. They had the most beautiful little kids. They were, doing everything that just looked beautiful. Like they looked like they had the most beautiful life. And when they divorced after a few years of being together, it shocked people. I mean, it shocked my mom. I remember my mom like, how is this? I just saw on Facebook they're broken up. Like just total shock to people because they were such a like a pillar in the community from the outside and what it looked like and the beauty of what they were doing. And when I talked to the woman about what happened, she simply said that there were things from the very beginning of their relationship, like from date one, from their first date, that she could not integrate in the moment. And she knew, she knew it was there, but we do this thing so quickly, and she shoved it into latency. She couldn't deal with it in the moment, and there were so many other good things happening. And that issue was always there. They just piled things on top and piled things on top and left that in latency. And they kept doing what they needed to do to survive in the moment and be happy in the moment. And that was left in latency. And it kept growing in there, in the closet. Like it was always there. And that's the point that I'm trying to make right now. It was always there. It was always going to kind of like go off one day. And she always knew that it was down there, although the rest of the world did not know. But after they broke up, she was so clearly able to articulate what it was and the things that she sensed on their very first date and their very few first months of dating of what was not going to be right, like the ways that they were bonding and attaching that were not going to be right in the end. That's the power of pushing things down into latency. It can be so painful when they get drawn back up. The thing to remember, and the story that always sticks out to me is that she always knew that that was there. She always knew that was there. No matter what was happening on the outside, she knew that that would have to be dealt with at some point. And when it finally came up and out, it was too much for them to withstand. And today's episode is a reminder of, for us that we have this ally in Fluorite. There's no person on earth that's able to like fully integrate and face and be present with everything that happens to them at every moment. We all get overwhelmed. And there's a process for pulling things back out of the closets that we store them in. And fluoride's a main ally for that. So physically, if you look at it physically, it's if you have something is stored in a deep place in your body, like it's stored in your DNA, and I know that's a huge topic and many things can be stored in your DNA, but if it's stored at that level, or your bone marrow, or if it's stored in your bone, or if it's stored in your kidneys, which are very deep, your adrenals are such a deep part of your endocrine system. Your whole endocrine system is quite deep. Uterus, brain, if you know something is stored in a deep place, fluorite is the stone to start drawing that out and pulling it out. And the colors have different orientations too. So if you work with yellow fluorite, it is going to, I'm just holding up a little piece of yellow fluorite. For those of you that are just listening, it's a little fluorite octahedron, but yellow fluorite has a way of pulling things out of the stomach, the spleen. It has a way of pulling things out of the muscles. And all of these fluorites can pull out and be connected to the pathogens or the fire toxins that cause cancer. Heavy metals cause cancer. There are many things that can cause cancer while they are stored in latency. Fluorite has a way of pulling those things out. So it's one of the biggest stones that we work with in cancer treatment, to start to pull out the pathogens or the toxins that started that process. Blue fluorite is really connected to the kidneys. This is a beautiful, I love blue fluorite. It's rare. So if you find a little piece of blue fluorite, it's great. It's beautiful for genetic issues, pulling things out, things that you know are constitutional or have happened, you've had them since birth. It is really resonant with the bones and the teeth and, the skull and the spine and the skeletal system. Green fluorite actually has a good way of pulling things out of the joints and the sinews and the liver. So there's a connection there with green fluorite. And I have to tell you something. So what is the process or function that actually is the thing that draws these things down into the depths and into latency, into these stored places? It's kind of like a crocodile that comes up out of deep, murky black waters and grabs something and just drags it back down under the deep, murky waters. That's kind of what it's like. That is very yin. That is very yin. So deep, dark waters drawing things down. That's very yin. Yang is very bright, active, moving. Yin is to pull something deep down and go low, right? And collect, like yin. And like crocodile pulling things down into the deep waters that's a yin process. It's like coming in, it's like going in for winter, it's very yin. The way that yin process is actually what's drawing things down to those deeper places to settle and to go into latency. There is a very warming effect to fluorite. It's a halogen on the periodic table, so it has this warming effect. And that yang, or that warming effect, where yin is cool and drawing things in and yang is warming and active, it's that warming effect of the fluorite, that halogen warming effect. It's actually, hey, alligator, I'm taking that thing back out. It's like using fire. It's like using activation, like a firework to pull, like to effervescent orange crush soda, like something effervescing to pull out of that deep, dark, murky yin. So it can be, an activating process. And you might be thinking, well, why should I ever pull things out of latency? Like that doesn't sound fun. Before I go there, I just want to say about purple fluorite is so cool. It is really so special and cool. And it's actually used as an herb in Chinese medicine. They'll just crush this up and use it as an herb. They'll use it to warm the womb or warm the lower body so that the person can get pregnant to create fertility. Because if there's cold in the womb or cold in the belly, it's hard to get pregnant. So they use this to warm the womb to get ready for fertility. Did you see that warming action? So the purple takes the fire in the heart. There's all this like fire and animation in our hearts, and it takes that fire with it down into the womb and pulls that warming all the way down into the womb and the belly and the lower body. So it can be very activating for reproductive issues. And that's why they use it as an herb in Chinese medicine for fertility. It's like taking that red of the heart down into the blue of the kidneys, reproductive organs, makes purple that activates and warms the womb. That was just something interesting about purple, but I digress. And I want to say that when you want to pull things out of latency is if you know something is down there that needs to come out. Something down there that you're not dealing with or that you're scared of. These can be scary places. If you know something is in there that's not you, like has attached to you, or you picked it up from somebody else or something else, but now it's gone deep into the body, you want to draw that out with fluorite. And an interesting time to think about doing this kind of work is before you would get pregnant. And that's for the man or the woman, either side of the equation before conception, because these things that go deep down inside us and can be in our genetics and even stored in our DNA and our traumas and move down into our programs and conditioning, those are the kind of things that we can pass on. So a good time to do a good fluorite, clearing the closets is before conception. Another time to do a good fluorite cleansing of the closets is like before you would get engaged or before you would decide to get married, like for a couple to say, let's see what we can draw out and draw back up so that we can deal with it now. So that we can, make our union on ground that doesn't have things kind of stirring in the closet. See if we can pull some things up. And now, as I'm saying this, you're probably thinking, it doesn't sound like we should do this for people who are actively in trauma or really scared or nervous, or they don't have the stability or support in their life. And that's true, because in work like this, there is, we call it law of cure, which means things can get worse before they get better, or you can have a really intense experience and then they get better because you're experiencing it all coming out of the closet. So fluorite has this ability to transmute and dematerialize things that we have stored in these deep places in ourselves, which leads to integration. And integration is healing. It's really the stone that allows things to emerge. It's the stone that allows things to emerge. Another time you might think about doing this is like, if you're going into a big cycle astrologically, or you're coming up before a big birthday, or you're coming up before you go away for 9 months to an artist camp or something, and you're like, let me just do a week or 7 days or 9 days where I just work with a fluorite elixir and just let some things come up. Or if you just did a meditation retreat, or you just did a ceremony, or you did something activating, and you feel these things ready to leave physical form, like you've kind of done the internal work to like rattle it loose, and then you want to pull it out with fluorite the rest of the way, that's another good time to work with fluorite. So, all stones work at a deep level. All stones are very alchemical. All stones can change things that seemed like they were going to be there forever, or that felt permanent. All stones have the ability to deal with permanence. Fluorite is so true and clear in its ability to clear, evaporate, dematerialize the things that we have stored in latency or stored in the depths of our closets. And honestly, it's a sweet reason at the end of the day. It's like the fluorite just loves to bond, and it wants to feel complete. It wants to fill these outer electron shells in the fluorine to feel complete. I mean, it feels like there's this way that it feels like I am a puzzle where someone put together 100 pieces of the puzzle, and there's this one piece missing, and I have to go out in the world and find that one piece. And then it brings everything to completion when it fills that outer shell. So it's very like a vacuum. It's very like looking for that piece, which makes it so clearing and powerful, and has such a clarity in what it does. And it will help you bring things to completion. After years of feeling this, or after years of this being hidden under the surface, we can now bring this to completion. We can bring it out of the closet. We can bring it out of where it has been stored. And it's beautiful that fluorine is number 9 on the periodic table of the elements, which is about completion. That number says we can bring this cycle of our life to a close. We can bring this fully to completion. And you know what? There's no greater peace. I feel like the feeling of peace so often comes from finally bringing something to completion. So that's my message for you today about fluorite. And let yourself be guided by the stone itself, and happy, wonderful blessings on the clearing that you may be doing in the coming weeks, months, and years with our beautiful ally, fluorite. Take care.